contains its two sides as moments. In diversity, they fall indifferently apart. In opposition, as such, they are sides of the difference, one being determined only by the other, and therefore only moments. But they are no less determined within themselves, mutually indifferent, mutually exclusive. The self-subsistent determinations of reflection. One is positive, the other the negative. But the former as the intrinsically positive, the latter is intrinsically negative. Each has an indifferent self-subsistence of its own through the fact that it has within itself the relation to its other moment. It is thus the whole, self-contained opposition. And as this whole, each is mediated with itself by its other and contains it. But further, it is mediated with itself by the non-being of its other. Thus, it is a unity existing on its own, and it excludes the other from itself. The self-subsistent determination of reflection that contains the opposite determination and is self-subsistent in virtue of this inclusion, at the same time also excludes it in its self-subsistence. Therefore, it excludes from itself its own self-subsistence. For this consists in containing within itself its opposite determination, through which alone it is not a relation to something external, but no less immediately the fact that it is itself, and also excludes from itself the determination that is negative to it. It is thus contradiction. Difference as such contains its two sides as moments. In diversity, they fell indifferently apart. In opposition, as such, they are the sides of the difference, one being determined only by the other, and therefore only moments, but they are no less determined within themselves, mutually indifferent, mutually exclusive, the self-subsistent determinations of reflection. as such contains its two sides as moments. Difference as such contains its two sides as moments. Difference as such contains its two sides as moments. Difference as such contains its two sides as moments. In diversity they fall. Indifferently apart the two moments. In diversity they fall. Indifferently apart the two moments. In opposition as such, they are sides of the difference. In opposition as such, they are sides of the difference. In opposition as such, they are sides of the difference. One being determined only by the other. In opposition as such, they are sides of the difference. One being determined only by the other. One being determined only by the other. And therefore only moments. And therefore only moments. But they are no less determined within themselves, no less determined within themselves, mutually indifferent, mutually exclusive, mutually indifferent and mutually exclusive. The self-subsistent determinations of reflection. The positive, the other the negative, but the former as intrinsically positive, the latter as intrinsically negative. One is the positive and the other the negative, but the former as intrinsically positive, the latter as intrinsically negative. Each has an indifferent self-subsistence of its own. Each has an indifferent self-subsistence of its own. Each has an indifferent self-subsistence of its own. Through the fact that it has within itself the relation to its other moment. The fact that it has within itself the relation to its other moment. Each has an indifferent self-subsistence of its own. Through the fact that it has within itself the relation to its other moment. Each has indifferent self-subsistence of its own. Through the fact that it has within itself the relation to its other moment. It is thus the whole self-contained opposition. It is the whole self-contained opposition. As this whole, each is mediated with itself. As this whole, each is mediated with itself by its other and contains it by its other and contains it. But further, it is mediated with itself by the non-being of its other. Mediated by itself with the non-being of its other. Mediated with itself by the non-being of its other. Mediated with itself by the non-being of its other. And contains it with the non-being of its other. And he contains it. Thus it is a unity existing on its own, and it excludes the other from itself. self-subsistent determination of reflection that contains the opposite determination, and is self-subsistent in virtue of this inclusion, at the same time also excludes it in its self-subsistence. Therefore, it excludes from itself its own self-subsistence. For this consists in containing within itself its opposite determination. For this consists in containing within itself its opposite determination, through which alone it is not a relation to something external, but no less immediately in the fact it is itself, and also excludes from itself the determination that is negative to it. It's thus contradiction. Difference as such is already implicitly contradiction. For it is the unity of the sides which are only insofar as they are not one. And it is the separation of sides which are only as separated in the same relation. But the positive and negative are the positive contradiction, because as negative unities, they are themselves the positing of themselves. And in this positing, each is the sublating of itself and the positing of its opposite. They constitute the determining reflection as exclusive. And because the excluding of the sides is a single act of distinguishing, and each of the distinguished sides, in excluding the other, is itself the whole act of exclusion, each side in its own self excludes itself. If we consider the two determinations of reflection on their own, then the positive is positiveness as reflected into likeness to itself, and positiveness that is not a relation to another. Difference as such is already implicitly contradiction. Difference difference as such is already implicitly contradiction. For it is the unity of sides which are only insofar as they are not one. And it is the separation of sides which are only as separated in the same relation. But the positive and negative, and the positive contradiction, because as negative unities, they are themselves the positing of themselves. And in this positing, each is the sublating of itself. And the positing of its opposite. They constitute the determining reflection as exclusive, because excluding of the sides is a single act of distinguishing, and each of the distinguished sides in excluding the other is itself a whole act of exclusion. The whole act of exclusion. Each is a whole act of exclusion. Each side in its own self excludes it.